What if the most hated woman in royal history became the most pitied overnight? It wasn't a headline. It wasn't a rumor. It was a notification. From Buckingham Palace, a message regarding the Duchess of Sussex has been issued. Just 12 words. Cold, measured, sterile. But they shattered the internet like glass. Because behind those words lay a truth the world wasn't prepared to face. A woman, once hailed as a Hollywood success story turned royal firebrand, now lay silent. Hooked up to oxygen, her body motionless beneath sterile white sheets. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, is reportedly critically ill. And worse, she may not make it. But what led to this moment? And more importantly, what is the royal family not telling us? Because here's the thing. The announcement didn't feel like a cry for help. It felt like a final statement. A closing chapter. Some say it came too late. Others, that it wasn't meant to come at all. And yet, there it was. Confirmation, from the palace itself, that Meghan was hospitalized. Not for fatigue, not for dehydration, but for something so severe, she's on oxygen, surrounded by round-the-clock medical care. Where was Harry? Where were the children? Where was the world when the woman we scrutinized, dissected, ridiculed, was quietly dying? You feel that? That chill creeping up your spine? That's not just shock. That's guilt. Collective guilt. Because whether you love her or loathe her, you watched this unfold. And maybe, just maybe, you didn't look away in time. But what if I told you? This isn't just a medical emergency. What if this is the climax of a carefully buried secret? What if the royal family knew long before today and still chose silence? Let's break it down. The silence before the storm. You know what's funny? This wasn't supposed to be the headline this week. Meghan Markle was expected at several end-of-year galas. First, the L'Oréal Women of Worth Gala, where she was slated to present an award. Then, the Gotham Film Awards, where sources claim she was negotiating a surprise appearance to promote upcoming Archewell content. But she didn't show. No official statement. No press release. Just a void. An empty seat. A no-show. And at first, people laughed. She's irrelevant now. She's burned all her bridges. She's hiding because her brand is tanking. But no one asked the obvious question. What if she was sick? Not sick of headlines. Not sick of scrutiny. But physically unwell. And when a royal source finally broke the silence and confirmed she was admitted to a private hospital in Los Angeles, the tone changed. Suddenly, it wasn't funny anymore. A palace caught off guard? Or a scripted reaction? Here's what you need to understand about royal communication. Nothing is accidental. For Buckingham Palace to issue a message, especially about someone who is no longer a working royal, is unheard of. Yet they did. On a quiet weekday morning, buried between stories of King Charles's upcoming Christmas address and Prince William's climate summit, came the post. Cold, minimal, deliberate. The Duchess of Sussex is currently receiving medical care for a serious health concern. We ask for privacy at this time. Wait, what? Let's dissect that for a second. Duchess of Sussex. Not Meghan. Not the former Duchess. The official title, used in the present tense. Serious health concern. What does that mean? Cardiac arrest? Pneumonia? Autoimmune? The ambiguity is a shield. It's also a warning. Privacy at this time. Translation, no questions. No answers. No access. And most chilling of all, no signature. No follow-up. No emotion. The public's reaction, grief. Or skepticism. Almost instantly, social media splintered. Hashtags like hashtag pray for Meghan and hashtag royal silence exploded on X, formerly Twitter. But so did the cynicism. She faked pregnancies. This is probably PR. She's playing victim again. She brought this on herself. And then a new voice entered the chaos. A nurse, an alleged staffer from the hospital, anonymously posting on Reddit, claimed, "She's in bad shape. Oxygen mask. Monitors everywhere. Harry hasn't left her side." The post was quickly deleted, but not before it was screenshotted. Not before it spread, and not before it reignited a terrifying question. Is Meghan Markle dying? A history of ignored warnings. Let's rewind for a second. Do you remember that 2021 Oprah interview? Meghan said she didn't want to be alive anymore. She said she begged for help. She said the palace turned their backs. and the world debated her pain like it was an audition tape. Was she exaggerating? Was it real? Did the royal family ignore her? Or did we? Fast forward to now. That same woman, once painted as melodramatic, is hooked up to oxygen. Her voice silent. Her face pale. Was this avoidable? Or inevitable? And here's the part no one wants to admit. We watched her unravel. In real time. And we clicked. We commented. We laughed. Until today. Until silence became more deafening than her interviews ever were. Harry's vanishing act. The Duke of Sussex has always been a wild card. But for the past week, total radio silence. No appearances. No statements. No paparazzi sightings. Until he was spotted, leaving a private LA hospital at 3:47 a.m. Eyes bloodshot. Hands shaking. Face grim. Witnesses say he was pacing for hours before that. Some claim he screamed at a security guard. Others say he broke down in a stairwell. But here's what's even more intriguing. He's refused contact with royal advisors. Sources inside the firm confirm. Harry blocked several incoming calls from palace lines. One aide reportedly said, "He told us he didn't trust anyone." That this was a moment for his wife, not for optics. So if the palace didn't issue the statement for Harry, who was it for? And why now? The timing, coincidence, or control? There's something strange about the timing of this crisis. It comes just 2 days after Meghan's production deal with a major network reportedly collapsed. It comes 3 days after Spotify filed a legal motion over unpaid deliverables from the Archetypes podcast. And it comes during the biggest media lull of the year. The pre-Christmas news freeze. Was this a controlled leak to reset public sympathy? Or is the illness real, and the royals are scrambling to manage the narrative? Either possibility is disturbing. One means they're using her. The other means they abandoned her, until the cameras turned back on. And then came the photo. Late last night, an unverified image began circulating. Blurry, grainy, clearly taken from a phone, possibly through hospital glass. It appeared to show Meghan Markle. Pale, eyes shut, lying in a hospital bed, an oxygen mask strapped across her face. We won't show it here, out of respect, but it exists, and it has changed everything. Because real or fake, the image shattered public cynicism. No one laughed after that. No one joked. No one called it a stunt. Instead, people began to whisper, what if she doesn't make it? A world divided. A family cornered. We are now living in one of the most ironic moments in modern media. A woman mocked for being dramatic is now feared to be genuinely gone too far. A royal family that once claimed to protect her image has now reduced her to a 12-word press release. And a public that once begged her to go away now waits with bated breath for any sign she'll recover. So here's the question no one is brave enough to ask. If Meghan Markle doesn't wake up, what happens next? What happens to Harry? To the children? To the monarchy's already tarnished legacy? What happens when the one person they wanted silenced is silenced forever? But before we answer that, we need to talk about what came next. Because just minutes after the palace's cold statement, a royal aide leaked something far more personal and far more dangerous. It was the part of the message they never wanted you to see. What if the part of the palace's message they released wasn't the real message at all? What if what we saw, those 12 sanitized words, wasn't the whole truth? What if the real bombshell was edited out? Because just minutes after Buckingham Palace posted their carefully worded statement on Meghan's hospitalization, something unexpected happened. Someone, on the inside, broke rank. A royal aide, who had served in the palace for over 8 years, allegedly leaked a draft of the original message. And this version wasn't cold, wasn't vague. It was raw, and it hinted at something far more disturbing than the public had been allowed to see. The draft that never saw the light of day. This wasn't a tabloid scoop. This wasn't a screenshot from a gossip blog. This was a verified internal message, according to 3 independent royal correspondents who confirmed its existence on encrypted journalist channels. The leaked draft said, "The Duchess of Sussex, Meghan, is currently under intensive care following respiratory complications. She is receiving oxygen and being closely monitored. The family is aware." This is a profoundly difficult time. Wait, what? Respiratory complications? Intensive care? The family is aware. A far cry from the cold detachment of serious health concern. This wasn't just concerning. It was terrifying. But it gets worse. Because tucked into the footer of the draft, beneath the official insignia, was a line that didn't make it into the published version. And this line changed everything. The Duchess had requested no public announcement unless her condition worsens. Meghan didn't want this going public, not unless it got bad, really bad. So if the palace did go public, that means one thing: her condition got worse, much worse. And that brings us to the question that's kept millions glued to their screens. What are they still not telling us? Because if this leaked draft was more transparent, more emotional, more human, why edit it down? Why strip away the part about oxygen? Why remove the acknowledgement of family involvement? Why cut the truth unless you're trying to control something much bigger? The strategy of distraction. You see, the royal family has a long history of PR spin. They're not just experts at managing crises, they're experts at reframing them. When Princess Diana died, remember how long it took the palace to respond? Remember the cold silence? The flag that didn't lower? History is echoing itself. Only this time, it's not the princess of the people. It's the woman they never wanted in the palace at all, Meghan Markle. And here's where it gets even darker. While the public was trying to piece together what serious health concern really meant, inside palace walls, something else was happening. The emergency meeting that no one reported. According to a veteran royal biographer, the moment Meghan's hospitalization was confirmed, an emergency meeting was held at Clarence House. Present: King Charles, Queen Camilla, Prince William, and 3 senior advisors. Absent: Prince Harry. Why? Because Harry had refused contact. He was in Los Angeles, reportedly shutting down all palace communications. He didn't want interference. He didn't want spin. He didn't want them anywhere near Meghan. And what was discussed during that closed-door meeting? Well, we only know one thing for sure. They rewrote the statement. The real reason the statement changed. Insiders claim the palace was deeply concerned about triggering another public sympathy wave from Meghan. After all, the Oprah interview had already painted them as cold, uncaring, and out of touch. They didn't want the world to cry for her again. They wanted neutrality, detachment. They wanted control. So they gutted the draft, removed the empathy, deleted the urgency. And what we got was the royal equivalent of a weather report. 12 words. One emotional void. But they underestimated something. They forgot the world had changed. Leaks aren't rare anymore. Secrets don't stay buried. And this time, the truth slipped through the cracks. Public outrage, the backlash begins. Once the leaked draft began circulating, people were furious. Not because Meghan was sick, but because the palace had tried to sanitize her suffering. One ex-user wrote, "She's hooked up to oxygen, and they made it sound like a dental checkup." Another posted, "Meghan Markle is fighting for her life, and the royal family can't even issue a human statement. Shameful." Even normally neutral voices in British media began asking hard questions. Why edit out the facts? Why suppress the detail about oxygen? Why make it sound like a routine check-in when sources were saying intensive care? The narrative was spinning out of control, and that's when something unexpected happened. A second statement, then quickly pulled. For about 14 minutes, the official royal family website updated its message. Version 2.0 said, "The Duchess of Sussex continues to receive oxygen support. The royal family remains in contact with medical staff." 14 minutes later, it was gone, replaced with the original 12-word version. No explanation, no apology, just a quick erase. But not before screenshots flooded social media. The public saw, the press saw, and suddenly, the royal family had a problem they couldn't walk back. They'd tried to downplay the crisis, but their digital fingerprints betrayed them. Harry's private fury, "Don't use her." Meanwhile, back in Los Angeles, Harry was reportedly furious. A longtime friend allegedly told Page 6. He knew they would try to control the story. He begged them not to touch it. This is his wife. This is his family now. Harry wasn't just trying to protect Meghan's privacy. He was trying to protect her dignity. He didn't want her illness to become another PR weapon in the monarchy's endless war of perception. But it was too late. The leaks were out. The sanitized message was exposed. The spin was unraveling. And the public had questions. Big ones. Who ordered the edit? And why now? Royal protocol demands that major statements pass through a senior advisor team known as the Communications and Sovereignty Council. A small, elite circle that has final say over any public-facing messaging from the monarchy. That group includes Sir Clive Alderton, King Charles's private secretary; Christian Jones, former comms chief, now shadow advisor; Fiona Msilwam, once Meghan's private secretary, now sidelined. So who made the call? According to leaked WhatsApp messages between mid-level palace staff, now being authenticated by media watchdogs, there was tension. Some wanted to be honest. Others feared public backlash. And allegedly, it was William, yes, Prince William, who suggested keeping it neutral. That's right. The man once seen as the future king of compassion may have been the one to emotionally redact the most urgent part of Meghan's story. If true, that's not just political. That's personal. Meghan's final request? But here's where things twist even deeper. Remember that leaked draft? The one that said Meghan requested no announcement unless things worsened? What if that was more than just a privacy note? What if Meghan knew this was coming? What if she knew that her condition might spiral, and she didn't want the palace to use it as a spectacle? Some insiders now believe Meghan left instructions, handwritten notes, contingency plans, because as much as she fought the headlines, the documentaries, the TikToks dissecting her every breath, she was always preparing for one thing: to protect her legacy if her voice ever went silent. But what came next would shatter any illusions that the palace had her best interests at heart, because someone, not Harry, decided to leak something else, something far more intimate, something Meghan wrote herself. And once it hit the press, it ignited a storm so fierce, even Buckingham Palace couldn't contain it. But that's a story for the next chapter. And trust me, no one was ready for what it revealed. What if the world's most talked about woman wasn't just fighting for her health, but fighting to be heard? It didn't start with a headline. It didn't start with an ambulance. It started with a whisper, a nurse, a shift change, a glimpse of someone they weren't supposed to recognize until they did. And suddenly, the entire floor went silent. Because there she was, the Duchess of Sussex, pale, motionless, a steady stream of oxygen flowing into her nose. And according to one anonymous nurse, she was crying in her sleep. The secret wing. Let's rewind to the night Meghan Markle was reportedly admitted. It wasn't a scene from Grey's Anatomy. There were no flashing lights or ER panic. She wasn't wheeled in with photographers chasing her like Diana in Paris. It was quiet, controlled, surgical. Sources say she entered through a restricted private entrance at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, flanked by 2 security guards and an unnamed aide. No paparazzi, no Archwell staff. Just silence. And yet, inside, everything was chaos. One ICU nurse, posting under a pseudonym on Reddit, claimed, "We didn't know who the patient was until the file was opened. It said M. Mountbatten Windsor. We blinked. Then we froze." A moment later, her vitals began to spike. Oxygen saturation was dropping. Heart rate erratic. An order was given. Oxygen immediately. From that moment on, nothing was the same. Nurses ordered to stay silent. According to several internal sources, confirmed independently by 2 freelance health reporters, Cedars-Sinai staff were given strict instructions. Do not refer to the patient by name. Do not speak to media. Do not record. Phones are to be locked during shifts. It was lockdown, but not the kind we're used to. This wasn't about infection control. This was about information control. Hospital executives reportedly signed a temporary NDA agreement with Meghan's legal team, limiting who had access to her room and who could even speak about her condition. And yet, even the tightest protocols have cracks. Because when a woman is lying unconscious, connected to machines that beep in steady rhythm, you can silence devices. But you can't silence emotion. She whispered a name. It was 3:12 a.m. A respiratory nurse, on rotation, stood beside Meghan's bed. She was checking levels, adjusting the flow of oxygen, recording stats. And then, it happened. A soft murmur. Barely audible. Meghan's lips moved. Her face tensed. And she whispered a name. Not Harry. Not Archie. Not Lilibet. But, according to the nurse's now-deleted post, she said, Diana. One word. One ghost. One legacy. And in that moment, the nurse reportedly stepped back. She didn't know what to say, because it didn't sound like a call for help. It sounded like a farewell. Medical details begin to leak. Here's what we know. Based on sources inside the hospital and corroborated by those close to Meghan's team, Meghan was admitted with respiratory distress, not injury. She was placed on a high-flow oxygen system, typically used for patients struggling with sustained oxygen absorption. Her condition was labeled guarded, meaning serious but stable, until it wasn't. Around 4 a.m., her oxygen levels dropped suddenly. A pulmonary team was called in. Alarms went off. It wasn't a cardiac event. It wasn't viral pneumonia. It wasn't a drug reaction. So what was it? Doctors aren't saying. Official records are sealed. But one anonymous internist suggested something chilling. When someone young and healthy, someone with no known chronic illness, suddenly presents with oxygen issues, we look at autoimmune triggers, neurological, even stress-induced collapses. And if there's one thing Meghan Markle has endured endlessly, it's stress. The breakdown before the breakdown. Insiders now say that in the 48 hours before her hospitalization, Meghan had shown unusual symptoms. Breathlessness during phone calls, fatigue that made standing for long periods difficult, unexplained coughing fits during internal Zoom meetings. Her staff reportedly urged her to see a doctor. She allegedly refused, wanting to push through to finalize a secret Archwell project she believed could reclaim her narrative. But her body had other plans. And at 10:23 p.m. on the night of her collapse, Harry made the call. 911 wasn't involved. No flashing lights. He drove her himself. Some say she collapsed in his arms at the door. Others claim she was still conscious, just barely, whispering, "Don't make this public." But the moment she was wheeled inside, that decision was out of her hands. Harry's vigil. They say love shows itself in the quietest moments. No cameras. No Netflix. No curated angles. Just a man beside his wife's bed. Eyes swollen. Hands clenched. Face pale with fear. One hospital staffer reported seeing Harry refuse a chair for 7 hours straight. He stood, leaning against the wall, watching the monitors. At one point, he allegedly broke down. He asked the doctor, "Can I talk to her? Can she hear me?" The response, "We think so. Speak gently. She may respond." And so he did. Witnesses say Harry whispered stories, talked about Archie's artwork, described Lilibet's laugh. But what broke him? What made him crumble to the floor was what he found in Meghan's handbag. A folded piece of paper, unmarked, private. One nurse says she saw him unfold it, read it, and say quietly, "She wrote this in case she didn't wake up." The letter that may break the internet. We'll get into the letter in the next chapter, because it deserves its own moment. But for now, let's stay inside that hospital room. Because while Harry grieved in silence, the world began to stir. And the staff? They saw everything. Unusual visitors at odd hours. By day 2, the hospital was under virtual siege. Security increased. Cameras were covered. Staff rotated in shorter shifts to prevent burnout. And, more cynically, to reduce leaks. But something strange happened at midnight on the second night. A woman entered the building through the service corridor. Not Doria. Not Serena. Not Oprah. A tall woman in a long black coat. Face covered. No security detail. But a nurse in the elevator said she saw the woman kiss Meghan's hand and whisper something in her ear. When asked who she was, the woman allegedly replied, "I'm the one who warned her this would happen." She left 20 minutes later. No record. No badge scan. A ghost. Who was she? A therapist? A royal insider? A private friend? To this day, no one knows. Unexplainable data gaps. Even more chilling, some of Meghan's medical logs were digitally wiped. Hospital software engineers discovered that between 1 a.m. and 2:15 a.m. on the second night, 3 entries were removed from her file. Security teams flagged it. Hospital administration called in forensic IT. An internal investigation was launched. No foul play detected. No breach. Just missing data. Theories began to fly. Was it an error? Was someone inside trying to erase something? Or was Meghan's condition worse than reported, and the timeline being scrubbed? Whatever the truth, it wasn't accidental. Because patient logs don't delete themselves. The final shift report, the most recent internal nurses report, leaked to an online whistleblower site, gave the following account. Patient remains on oxygen. Vital signs inconsistent. Responsive to auditory stimulus. Family declined sedation. Observed vocalizations in sleep. Continued reference to Mom and D. Mom is obvious. D could be Diana. But others believe D could also be Doria. Meghan's mother, who still hadn't made a public appearance. At this point, staff began to fear the worst. One nurse reportedly wrote, "She's fading, not physically yet, but spiritually. It feels like she's letting go." And as this quiet tragedy unfolded within four white walls in Los Angeles, the outside world was beginning to learn the truth. Because just as the hospital doubled its security, someone decided to leak the letter. A letter Meghan wrote days before her collapse. A letter that was never meant for public eyes, and yet would change everything we thought we knew about her final days of silence. But that revelation is where everything spins out of control, and it's where we go next. What happens when a man who gave up everything for love realizes he might lose her anyway? It's easy to imagine Prince Harry as the rebel, the black sheep, the man who walked away from Buckingham Palace with his head high and his wife's hand in his. But what most people never see is what happens when the cameras are off, when the speeches are over, when the love of your life is hooked up to oxygen and fading by the minute. Because inside that hospital room, it wasn't a prince pacing the tiles. It was just a man, barefoot, sleepless, and terrified. Day 3, the breaking point. By the third day of Meghan's hospitalization, Harry had reportedly gone 34 hours without sleep. He hadn't left the building. He hadn't answered calls. He barely spoke to staff, except to ask for more time at her bedside. But at 3:42 a.m., security footage shows something unsettling. Harry slammed his hand against a hallway wall, startled a nurse, collapsed into a crouch, and began to sob uncontrollably. A doctor passing by tried to speak to him. Harry allegedly waved him off. "I'm fine," he said. "She's not." And then, he stood up and walked straight to Meghan's room. But not before whispering, "She wrote me something. I found it. And I can't breathe." The note in her bag. We teased it before. Now let's talk about the letter that triggered Harry's breakdown. Because tucked into Meghan's purse, neatly folded, wrapped in a pale blue ribbon, was a handwritten note, addressed simply, "To the love of my life. In case." In case. 2 words that carry the weight of a falling sky. Sources close to the couple say the letter was written 3 days before Meghan was hospitalized. Which raises a question. Did she know something was wrong before anyone else did? Inside the letter, she reportedly wrote, "I need you to remember that no matter what happens, this life we built was real. I felt safe. I felt free. I felt loved in a way I never thought I deserved." And then the line that broke Harry. "If I don't wake up, please tell the truth. All of it. Even the parts that scare you." That sentence. It shattered him. Because to Harry, this wasn't just a goodbye letter. It was a request. A mission. A dare. The fight behind closed doors. Immediately after reading the letter, Harry reportedly demanded to speak with Meghan's attending physician. A nurse tried to calm him. He refused to be calmed. He wanted numbers. He wanted odds. He wanted answers. And when the doctor said her condition was touch and go, Harry allegedly lost it. "No, that's not good enough. I need to know if she's going to make it." The doctor tried to explain oxygen saturation rates, lung inflammation, possible neurological triggers. But Harry wasn't hearing science. He was hearing finality, calls that went unanswered. In his panic, Harry tried calling the only people he thought might care, his family. First, he rang Clarence's house. No answer. Then he tried Prince William's private line. Voicemail. Eventually, a palace aide called him back. But instead of comfort, Harry reportedly got something else. "We are managing the public side of things. You should focus on your wife." Harry hung up mid-sentence. To him, it wasn't about public statements. It wasn't about optics. It was about a woman barely breathing in a sterile room while the world whispered theories. And the people who were supposed to know him best didn't show up. Harry's isolation and fury. Here's something no one expected. He banned his family from visiting. That's right. Even when Queen Camilla allegedly offered to fly out for support, Harry declined. Why? According to a nurse who overheard a conversation between Harry and Meghan's legal representative, he doesn't want them turning this into a media play. If they couldn't show up when she was alive and screaming, don't show up now when she's quiet. That's not bitterness. That's betrayal. And it cuts deeper when you remember the public face the royals have maintained. Always smiling. Always diplomatic. Always just detached enough. But Meghan's oxygen tube? It made detachment look like cruelty. The room with no light. At one point, Harry reportedly requested that all lights in Meghan's room be dimmed. He asked for quiet, for warmth, for privacy. He even brought in a framed photo of Archie and Lilibet and placed it next to her monitor. Some say he played audio messages from the children, hoping it might reach her subconscious. And in the soft blue light of the medical machines, staff report one moment that no one has forgotten. He kissed her hand and whispered, "Don't go where I can't follow." Silence followed. Even the machines seemed to hush. The moment, he almost collapsed. Harry isn't fragile. He's been to war. He's walked behind his mother's casket. He's faced the world's press at its most vicious. But nothing prepared him for watching Meghan struggle to breathe. A respiratory nurse said that during a respiratory evaluation, Meghan coughed, weakly. Harry jumped, hope in his eyes. But then she slipped back into unconsciousness. He turned to the nurse and whispered, "I thought I lost her right there." Then he fainted, right there in the room, caught by a technician before he hit the floor. Harry's one request. Later that evening, when the press began to call Cedars-Sinai directly for statements, Harry made a single demand. Don't let anyone near her. No cameras, no press, no family unless she asks. It was a barricade, an emotional wall, built out of desperation. Because deep down, Harry wasn't just afraid of losing Meghan. He was afraid of losing her again, to the headlines, the hate, the machine. Doria's arrival, and tension. It wasn't until the fourth night that Doria Ragland, Meghan's mother, finally arrived. She came in quietly, wearing a long coat and carrying what one nurse described as a shoebox of letters. But sources say Harry's demeanor changed the moment she entered. Not relief, not joy, but tension. Some say they exchanged words in private. Others claim Doria was shocked by how far Meghan had deteriorated. But what's clear is this. Doria cried. She held her daughter's hand, and she read a letter aloud, one Meghan had written to herself years ago. And Harry? He listened, but he didn't speak, because he was waiting for something. The eye movement that changed everything. Then it happened. On the fifth morning, 6:19 a.m., a nurse recorded something subtle, but undeniable. Meghan's eyelids fluttered. Twice. It wasn't consciousness. It wasn't full awareness. But it was movement. It was something. Harry was called into the room. He sat beside her, held her hand, and then he laughed. One of the nurses said it was the first time he'd smiled in days. "You're still here," he whispered. "You stubborn, brilliant woman. You're still here." She didn't respond, but her fingers twitched. And in that moment, everything changed. The next test. Doctors planned to reduce Meghan's oxygen intake slowly, to see if her lungs could support unassisted breathing. It was risky. If her oxygen saturation dropped below 88%, they'd have to consider intubation. Harry signed the release form with a trembling hand. And as the test began, staff cleared the room. Only Harry remained, standing, watching, praying. The machine beeped steadily. 92%, 90%, 89%, and then it held. 88%. Stable. But before Harry could exhale, a coded page rang through the hospital intercom. Code white. Room 617. Emergency consult requested. That was Meghan's room. Her code. Doctors rushed in. Security tightened. And Harry? He was pulled aside. One doctor reportedly said, "We found something else, and we need to talk." What they found next would not only change her treatment, it would change everything they thought they knew about why she collapsed in the first place. When history begins repeating itself, do we call it coincidence or a curse? Because as Meghan Markle lay unconscious in a private Los Angeles hospital, hooked up to oxygen, the world wasn't just watching. It was remembering. The flashing cameras, the whispered conspiracies, the cold, calculated press statements. And a woman, beloved by some, vilified by others, now fighting for her life alone. It was all happening again. Only this time, the name wasn't Diana. It was Meghan. A haunting parallel. Let's start with the obvious. Princess Diana died in 1997 after a car crash in a Paris tunnel, hounded by paparazzi, ignored by a system that should have protected her. She begged for help. She asked for peace. She cried out against the media, the royal family, and a world that demanded her smile and crucified her for blinking. And Meghan? She gave the same warnings. On Oprah, in interviews, in whispers. Only now, the whisper has turned into a hospital monitor beep. And the world is waking up to a horrifying question. Did we let it happen again? Is this Diana 2.0? That's what one headline read the morning after Meghan's condition was confirmed as unstable but improving. Not Meghan Markle seriously ill. Not Duchess on oxygen support. Just, is this Diana 2.0? Think about that. Meghan's identity, her story, her humanity, once again being measured against another woman's tragic ending. And yet it fits too well. The woman who married into the most powerful monarchy in Europe. The woman who was cheered as a breath of fresh air, then choked by that same system. The woman who challenged the rules, rewrote the narrative, and walked away, only to be slowly dragged back into the headlines. This time, not by choice. The public, divided, confused, loud. What's fascinating is how people responded. The sympathy came fast. Hashtags like hashtag We Love You Meghan and hashtag Not Again Diana began trending on X and TikTok. Thousands posted photos of Meghan smiling with Archie, clips of her wedding, her speech to the UN, her struggles. People apologized, publicly, for not believing her, for laughing, for mocking, for rolling their eyes when she said she wanted to end her life. But just as quickly came the backlash. Because there's another group, loud, organized, merciless, who believe this is karma. The she deserved it crowd. Let's not pretend it doesn't exist. For every message of compassion, there was one laced with cruelty. She destroyed the royal family. She faked her pregnancies. She's a narcissist who finally lost control. And the worst one, repeated in comment sections everywhere. Diana died a victim. Meghan's just facing the consequences of her choices. Read that again. The consequence of her choices. As if collapsing in a hospital bed, gasping for breath, is a price you deserve to pay for what? Speaking up? Leaving a toxic job? Marrying someone the world said you weren't worthy of? The cruelty isn't just casual. It's deliberate. And it begs the question, when did the public decide it gets to choose who lives and who dies with dignity? Royal silence adds fuel to the fire. Let's talk about the firm. By day 5 of Meghan's hospitalization, not a single royal, except Harry, had visited. No statement from William. No visit from Charles. No card. No flowers. Nothing. In the Diana tragedy, the public was enraged that the Queen stayed in Balmoral, that she didn't come back to London sooner. They saw it as coldness, detachment, arrogance. And now, history repeats. The royal family's Instagram account continued posting pre-scheduled photos of King Charles attending a tree planting ceremony. Queen Camilla was seen at a charity gala. Prince William spoke at a youth climate summit and dodged every reporter's question about his sister-in-law's condition. And behind that silence, people began to whisper, "They want her gone." A shocking phrase, right? But those exact words trended for 6 straight hours on TikTok and X. Not as a joke, not as a meme, but as a theory. Creators began connecting dots. Clips of Diana's final interview. Clips of Meghan's Oprah appearance. Both women describing themselves as trapped, isolated, silenced. And now, one ended up dead in a hospital. The other, unconscious in one. Coincidence? Or the cost of rebellion? Is it crazy? Maybe. But when patterns repeat too precisely, it's hard to look away. Diana walked so Meghan could fall. One tweet hit differently. A woman wrote, Diana walked so Meghan could run. But maybe she was running toward the same fate all along. Chilling. Even more so when you remember that Meghan reportedly whispered Diana in her sleep, as revealed by one nurse. And according to leaked hospital notes, she also muttered something else. Don't let them take my children. Let that sink in. In her vulnerable, semi-conscious state, Meghan wasn't dreaming about fame, or Harry, or titles. She was afraid her children would be taken. Just like Diana feared losing William and Harry in her bitter custody battle. Full circle. But is it really a curse? Or is it the machine? Let's talk plainly. It's easy to say Diana's curse. To point at history and call it mystical. Fated. But maybe it's not a curse. Maybe it's the machine. The media. The monarchy. The obsession. Diana broke protocol. She died. Meghan broke expectations. Now she's nearly lost her life. 2 women. 2 stories. 2 headlines that echoed the same line. She couldn't handle the pressure. But here's a better question. Who built the pressure in the first place? An unforgivable meme. Here's where things turned truly grotesque. While Meghan lay in the ICU, someone made a meme. It showed Meghan in a hospital bed, with text that read, "Should have signed up for NHS, not Netflix." It was retweeted over 10,000 times, laughed at, shared in group chats, used in reaction videos. And yet, no one was stopping it. No suspension, no royal condemnation, not even a public show of solidarity from public figures. Why? Because in the eyes of some, Meghan Markle is still a character, not a person. The only voice that broke the pattern. On the 6th day of Meghan's hospitalization, something unexpected happened. A statement was posted. Brief, but pointed. From Princess Eugenie. "My thoughts are with Meghan. I pray for her healing and her family's peace. The past doesn't have to repeat itself." She didn't mention Diana. She didn't mention the firm. But we all knew what she meant. That single post? It was shared over 2 million times. Because in a sea of silence, one woman dared to say what the monarchy wouldn't. The question no one can answer. If Meghan survives this, if she walks out of that hospital room, what then? Will she be hailed as brave? Will she be mocked for milking her illness? Will the palace finally embrace her, or bury her further in quiet disassociation? But if she doesn't make it, will she be remembered like Diana, or dismissed like a headline that came and went? And most importantly, will we finally admit that we, the audience, helped write this tragedy? The world is watching. Right now, the hospital room is still sealed. Harry is still waiting. The royal family is still silent. And the press? They're sharpening their pens. Because whether it's a recovery or a funeral, they're ready to publish. And you have to ask yourself, if Meghan's next breath is her last, what story will they write? And who will it serve? But before that question gets answered, one of the hospital's respiratory specialists noticed something. An anomaly. A pattern. A possible cause that had nothing to do with natural illness, and everything to do with exposure. And what they found in Meghan's blood work sent the medical team into panic mode. What if the signs were there all along, and we just didn't want to see them? Meghan didn't collapse overnight. She didn't suddenly fall ill out of nowhere. The truth is, her body was screaming long before it gave out. But no one was listening. Or worse, we saw the signs and dismissed them. Because over the past 3 months, Meghan Markle's public presence had quietly been shrinking. A canceled gala here. A missed red carpet there. A private family matters statement. And through it all, the headlines spun one story, while her health was telling another. The cancellations that made no sense. It began with the L'Oreal Women of Worth Gala in early October. Meghan had been confirmed to appear. Her team had even requested a specific lighting setup. There was talk of her presenting a surprise award to a rising human rights activist. The red carpet was prepped. Her name was on the program. And then, silence. No show. No last-minute press release. Just a quietly edited digital flyer, with Meghan's name scrubbed out. At the time, media blamed it on scheduling conflicts. Some claimed she was prioritizing family. Others said it was strategic. She was rebranding. But what if the truth was far more dangerous? Behind the scenes at Archewell, 2 weeks later, Meghan was scheduled to lead a private panel at Archewell's Santa Barbara offices. Staff were excited. The topic was mental health and media, ironically close to home. But when the day arrived, Meghan didn't. One former employee, who has since left the organization, told an anonymous podcast host, "We were told she wasn't feeling well. Nothing major, just exhaustion. But she hadn't looked like herself in weeks." Another insider claimed Meghan's assistant had begun rescheduling or outright canceling any engagements that involved standing for long periods. Why? Because, allegedly, Meghan had been struggling with shortness of breath and unexplained fatigue since mid-September. Still, she pushed on, because that's what she always did. The Gotham Awards snub. Fast forward to late November. The Gotham Film Awards were buzzing with rumors that Meghan and Harry would make a surprise appearance to tease their latest Netflix project. Producers were quietly preparing a seat row for special royal guests. Cameras were set. Publicists were briefed. And then? Nothing. Not only did they not show, sources say Harry called that morning to say Meghan was under the weather. But here's where things get darker. According to one PR source, Harry's voice was shaky and off. He reportedly told one producer, "She's been having a hard time breathing. We just don't want to make it a thing." They thought it was a panic attack or anxiety, something mental. But now, with Meghan lying in a hospital bed on oxygen support, the story hits different. She wasn't skipping events for PR reasons. She was physically deteriorating in real time. The weight loss nobody talked about. Let's talk visuals. If you compare Meghan's public appearances from June to September, there's a disturbing trend. Her face looks slimmer. Her collarbones more defined. Her posture slightly hunched in candid shots. At first, fans chalked it up to stress, or fashion, or even camera angles. But a fashion stylist who worked with Meghan over the summer told a private blogger she was losing weight, not in a glam way, in a worrying way, and she was always cold, even in the heat. She reportedly asked for wool layers during a California shoot in August, while temperatures hit 90 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not diva behavior. That's systemic fatigue. That's internal malfunction. But again, no one said anything. Because what's easier to believe? That a woman is fragile? Or that she's fading? She just needed a break. Or did she? By early December, Meghan was essentially off the grid. No holiday events. No Archwell updates. No paparazzi sightings. No Instagram leaks. Nothing. And yet, no one panicked. Why? Because we'd been trained not to. For years, Meghan had been labeled dramatic, attention-seeking, unreliable. So when she disappeared, people assumed it was calculated. She's working on a secret project. She's laying low until the next Netflix deal. She's just tired of the media. No one thought. She might be too sick to leave her house. No one asked, is something seriously wrong? The California retreat distraction. Remember this secret getaway story? In mid-November, tabloids reported that Meghan and Harry had taken a private trip to a secluded retreat in Big Sur for rest and rejuvenation. Photos never surfaced. No one confirmed the trip. And now, sources inside Archwell suggest it may never have happened. In fact, Meghan may have been too weak to travel at all. So where did the rumor come from? Simple. It was a deflection leak, a strategic PR move to explain her vanishing act. Instead of telling the world Meghan was homebound, fragile, and under medical care, the team floated a romantic holiday. Smoke and mirrors. Sunshine instead of shadows. And we all bought it. The Netflix insider's warning. One of the most jarring revelations came from inside Netflix itself. A post-production assistant, now on leave, leaked a DM to a popular blind item blog. The message said, "We had deadlines for Meghan's voiceovers." Then suddenly everything was paused. We were told she wasn't well. No further explanation. Legal shut it down fast. If true, this suggests Meghan's health had already disrupted her professional obligations, long before her hospitalization. The same team that built her global brand was quietly hitting pause, canceling sessions, pulling back, and yet no one told us. Why? Because saying she's sick would kill momentum, kill contracts, kill revenue. So they stayed quiet, until silence became unbearable. The Archwell exodus. And here's something nobody noticed at the time, but now makes eerie sense. From September to December, for senior Archwell staffers resigned. No public fallout. No drama. Just quiet exits. Among them, a communications director, a podcast executive, a philanthropic coordinator, a brand consultant. At the time, insiders whispered about strategic restructuring. But what if they knew? What if Meghan's health was deteriorating, and no one wanted to be left holding the bag? What if Archwell wasn't falling apart because of bad business, but because its heartbeat was slipping away? Medical professionals silenced? According to one whistleblower forum, at least 2 physicians who worked with Meghan in the last 90 days refused to comment on her current condition, even off the record. Why? Because reportedly, they'd signed NDAs. Think about that. Doctors, bound by confidentiality, yes, but also legally barred from saying anything about a former patient's condition. That's not standard. That's crisis protocol. And it suggests Meghan wasn't just battling a cold. She wasn't just run down. She was seriously ill, and her team knew it. The public never stood a chance. And that brings us to the ugliest truth of all. We never knew because they didn't want us to. The signs were there. Her face got thinner. Her events got canceled. Her voice disappeared. And we, the public, we filled in the blanks with gossip. Because it's easier to believe a woman is flaky than fragile. Easier to assume she's a diva than a patient. And now, she lies in a hospital bed, unconscious, breathing through a machine. And we're left wondering, how long has she been dying in plain sight? But just as the world begins to reckon, doctors run a final test. a rare toxin screening, ordered at Harry's urgent request. And what they find isn't just unexpected, it's alarming, because it suggests Meghan's illness might not have been natural at all. Something foreign, something introduced. And what they suspect next will ignite a royal scandal unlike anything in modern history. What happens when the man expected to uphold the crown might be the reason his own brother refuses to answer the phone. It's a question no royal reporter dares to ask out loud. Not directly, not without consequences. But behind palace doors, whispers have become roars. Because as Meghan Markle's oxygen mask fogs with each shallow breath, Prince William, the future king, has made a choice. Not to rush to her bedside, not to issue a personal statement, not to offer public solidarity with his brother, but to remain silent. And for some, that silence speaks volumes. Is it royal protocol? Is it personal pain? Or is it something darker? Let's break it down. The missed call that changed everything. 3 days into Meghan's hospitalization, after Harry's breakdown and the leaked letter incident, he reportedly tried reaching out to his brother. One last time. According to a security source at Cedars-Sinai, Harry placed a call to Prince William's private number, a direct line only a few people know. It rang. It rang again. No answer. Then it went straight to voicemail. And Harry? He didn't try again. That wasn't an accident. It wasn't a scheduling issue. That was a message. The brothers' final argument. A flashback. To understand this fracture, we need to go back. Way back. To the last confirmed moment the brothers shared a private exchange. The unveiling of Princess Diana's statue in 2021. Cameras showed them smiling, laughing even. But insiders later revealed the truth. It was an act. Because after the cameras stopped flashing, the brothers reportedly walked off alone and argued. One palace aide said, "It was hushed, but heated." William was firm. Harry was pleading. They didn't leave on good terms. The root of the conflict? Meghan. Specifically, her Oprah interview. And William's fury that Harry had allowed the institution to be dragged. From that moment on, their relationship turned icy. And now, with Meghan on the brink, that ice has frozen solid. Kate's quiet refusal. It's not just William. Kate Middleton, once seen as the possible bridge between the brothers, has also remained eerily quiet. Not a word, not a gesture, which is especially strange when you consider this. Kate once said, in front of a journalist, that Meghan's situation had been handled poorly by palace advisors. So why the silence now? Sources close to the Princess of Wales say she's choosing to support her husband. Translation? She's siding with William, even if it means stepping back from compassion. And to many watching, it reads as cold, detached, even calculated. But here's where things twist. Because behind William's royal facade, something more conflicted is reportedly brewing. Private guilt, public distance. A royal biographer close to Kensington Palace says William is tortured by the situation. He reportedly told a confidant, "This isn't how I wanted things to go, but I can't fix what's already broken." Read that again. Not, "I won't. I can't." Which begs the question, what exactly did William do, or not do, that's left this relationship shattered beyond repair? And why now, with Meghan fighting for her life, can't he pick up the phone? Some insiders say it's about pride. Others say it's about protection. And then there are those who believe it's about something William knows and is afraid to confront. The Oxford email. Let's pause here and talk about one of the most mysterious pieces of this puzzle. An unverified email surfaced online, sent allegedly from a senior advisor within Kensington Palace to a legal consultant at Oxford University. The email was dated just 3 days before Meghan's hospitalization. It read, "We are preparing for potential fallout. The narrative must remain steady. No leaks regarding the internal review. No names. No specifics. But the recipient? Was someone involved in crisis media? The implication? There was something William's team knew was coming. Something they were preparing for. And now, in light of Meghan's health crisis, conspiracy theorists are having a field day. Was it illness? Was it something else? And did William know, before the rest of the world?" William's role in the statement edit. Back in Chapter 1, we revealed that the palace's official statement on Meghan's condition had been gutted before release. References to oxygen support and intensive care were removed. The tone was made sterile, detached. Guess who insiders claim pushed for that edit? Prince William. A source close to the Communications Council said. William insisted that any language be neutral. He didn't want another Diana moment. He didn't want drama. But here's the irony. In trying to avoid a Diana-level tragedy, he might have helped create one. Because now the public is asking, why did the future king downplay the health crisis of his brother's wife? And worse, what was he afraid we'd feel if we knew the truth? The hospital attempt, that never happened. As the days ticked by and Meghan remained unconscious, reports began swirling that William was preparing to fly to Los Angeles to support his brother. Palace aides denied it. Royal reporters speculated. But here's the bombshell. An LAX flight manifest obtained by an aviation blog shows that a British government charter jet was reserved, but never boarded. The name blocked out. But the date matched the exact day Meghan's vitals dropped unexpectedly. So what happened? Why cancel the flight? According to one leak from Heathrow protocol staff, the passenger was advised against going. It could escalate media attention. Security was a concern. But other whispers say it was simpler. Harry wouldn't let him in. Harry's ultimatum. A new twist came when a Los Angeles-based lawyer confirmed that emergency visitation protocols had been filed at Cedars-Sinai. Translation? Harry had legally restricted access to Meghan's hospital room, including royal visitors. One nurse claimed there was a do not admit list, and the names were shocking. William was on it. Let that sink in. Harry didn't just refuse a phone call. He put it in writing that his brother couldn't come near his wife. Why? Because to Harry, this wasn't just about reconciliation. It was about trust. And in his mind, that trust was gone. The private message that never went public. Still, one royal source claims William did try, once, to reach out. Not through PR, not through official lines, but with a handwritten letter passed through a trusted contact. The message? I can't imagine your pain, but I want you to know I am thinking of her. Of you. I don't know what else to say. Touching? Maybe. Too little? Too late? Definitely. Because Harry reportedly tore it up. And what did he say when he was asked why? If he truly cared, he'd be here. So who is William right now? A grieving brother? A calculating heir? A man trapped between duty and guilt? Or a silent bystander watching history repeat itself? One palace aide said it best. He's haunted by Diana. And now Meghan. He thinks silence protects the monarchy. But this time, it's making him look like the villain. And the public? They're beginning to ask uncomfortable questions. If William had spoken sooner, would things be different? If he hadn't blocked emotional language from the palace's statement, would sympathy have come faster? If he'd visited Meghan before the press knew, would people see him as a brother, not a future king? But there's one question even William may not be ready to face. What if Meghan dies? And he never spoke to her again? Because no matter where this ends, that silence will echo forever. But even as the brothers drift further apart, another player is about to step in. Someone Harry never expected. Someone who hasn't spoken to Meghan in years. And someone who knows the palace far too well. She's about to break her silence. And her message will send shockwaves across the royal family. What happens when the monarch who vowed to modernize the crown is accused of knowing the truth and hiding it? Because in the aftermath of Meghan Markle's collapse and hospitalization, one question started bubbling beneath the headlines. What did King Charles know, and when did he know it? We've already dissected William's silence. We've seen Harry's breakdown. But behind the gilded doors of Buckingham Palace, King Charles was said to be fully briefed on Meghan's condition days before the public found out. And not only that, he was allegedly involved in crafting the official palace statement, the one that downplayed Meghan's health and erased the word oxygen. But why? Why would a king, father to one son, father-in-law to the woman now in critical care, choose spin over sincerity? Let's pull back the curtain. Day 1, the moment Charles was alerted. According to a former royal aide turned whistleblower, Charles received the call at 4:23 a.m. UK time, mere hours after Meghan was admitted to Cedars-Sinai. It wasn't a direct call from Harry. It came through official royal channels. The message? The Duchess of Sussex has been hospitalized. Oxygen support. Condition serious. Prince Harry is by her side. King Charles reportedly read the message silently, paused, and simply said, "So it begins." What did he mean by that? Was it dread? Was it expectation? Or was it strategy? Because what came next wasn't empathy. It was containment. The emergency communications lockdown. Within the hour, Charles summoned his senior advisors to a private meeting inside Clarence House. Attendees included Clive Alderton, private secretary; Julian Payne, former head of comms, reactivated as emergency counsel; three unnamed representatives from royal legal and press teams. This meeting, confirmed by multiple sources, was not a crisis of compassion. It was a war room. According to leaked notes from someone present, later published anonymously on a royal gossip forum. The agenda was blunt. Discuss media strategy. Control sympathy narrative. Mitigate comparisons to Diana. Let that sink in. While Meghan's oxygen tube fogged with each shallow breath, the Crown was debating optics. Not support. Not aid. Optics. The Charles Doctrine. No more Diana moments. If there's one thing King Charles learned from the disaster that was Diana's death, it's this: do not let emotion dictate the monarchy. In 1997, the Queen was harshly criticized for remaining in Balmoral while the nation grieved.